So today we are going to look at the satellite for 2008, the year 2008. So let's see what kind of little secret nooks and crannies we can find in 2000.
It's a rainy day today. Oh. Well, I've had a few comments in the map time videos. One of the comments asked me, why are we using or why are we going back and looking at past years from the satellite? Okay, well, here's your answer. Simple. We are looking at old logging roads that may lead over the mountain that they used to use that you can't see in the current satellite shots and videos and view. We are also looking at structures that we may not be able to see because the foliage is out in full bloom in the current satellite view. We're also looking at structures that may have been built recently. There may be also trails and trailers and also deer blinds that we cannot see with the current view that we have in the satellite. Also caves and ponds. This is just our way of trying to figure out, because if someone did abduct Summer, John Pruitt says that they do not believe she was taken or trafficked out of the area. That means to me that John Pruitt believes, when he's the lead detective in Hawkins County, that leads me to believe that he thinks that Summer is still in the area. Maybe she was trafficked in the area. Maybe she wandered off like they think. I don't know. But he said taken or trafficked out of the area. What's that mean to you all? I'll tell you what it means to me. That means that law enforcement believes she's still in the area with someone. So, what's our best tool? Satellite. Yeah. And what do we do if we can't see through the current foliage that the satellite provides right now? Well, I told you I think out of the box. You go back in time. You go back to past satellite dates, and you can see all the trails. You can see all the structures. Not on every single year, but we can see when they were built, when they appeared, if they've always been there. That's the reason why we are doing map time. And that's another reason why I call this the rabbit hole. Okay, I hope that answered your question. Thank you. It was a very good question to ask.
And we have another map time, and hopefully this one we can see a lot of the terrain, a lot of the trails, and a lot of the forgotten log trails and log roads. There's also, we can see hidden structures that are on Beech Creek, Ben Hill, Limestone Branch. My number one suspects are still somebody that's involved with the tree trimmers, and also someone who may have came and looked at the 3 properties that were for sale. So let's go and look and see what we can see as far as what's on each of the properties. Hopefully this gives us a good insight on what the trails and the roads, forgotten roads, look like. I have found some structures that are on certain properties that are kind of, on my radar as well, and I will point those out to you. And there's two of them on Limestone Branch. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. And they're kind of far back in there. I would love to go and hike that and see what's back there, but I know it's kind of impossible to do it. But at least we can see on the satellite that, that it's there. Anyway, so follow me down the rabbit hole. See you in a minute. Bye.
In we go. Where are we going?
I don't know, but I don't like the looks of that tunnel up there. Hey, Wonka, I want off!
Round the world and home again. That's the sailor's way.
I don't mind this ride, Daddy.
Wonka, do me a favor. Tell those people to stop.
There's no earthly way of knowing
He's singing.
which direction we are going. There's no knowing where we're rowing or which way the river's flowing. Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is a hurricane a-blowing? Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing. Are the fires of hell a-glowing? Is the grisly reaper mowing? Yes! The danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing, and they're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing.
Oh, make him stop, Daddy!
Wonka, this has gone far enough.
Quite right, sir. Stop the boat.
We're there.
On the next day when the FBI brought it, Randy brought it to my attention.
Who's Randy?
The guy used to work with us.
Oh,
They actually talked to him, but I was in the pickup truck with the mother, the mama, and son.
so you saw some?
Well, she was in the truck. Randy said that she laid up in the back of the truck with his indicator.
Did she? Oh, was that morning?
Yeah.
What that name? Did anybody see?
No, because where we're from Morristown area that way, they give us drive time. At that time, we was leaving 3:30 of the day.
We lived there for like a decade, a little over, and they lived there less than that. And Josie was 12. They had already had second. They were probably only there like 6, 7 years, something like that. They had been there for like maybe a year or two prior to Summer's youngest brother being born, right? So maybe close to what we had, but not, too far off from there, because she was pregnant with Summer when I met her, and Summer's youngest brother was still in diapers and very young. I'm still speaking about it broader because it's not just us. It's others around Summer's case. They've done this too. It's the community they've changed forever. Generations of people will be affected by what C&D and the targeting and all that stuff have done. Not including the trauma to the community from Summer vanishing. And I mean, all of Summer's church families, because there were many. And there are many who care for her, and Yeah, they are just doxing the entire community and hurting people that want nothing but the best for summer and the best outcome possible and justice served. But it's the targeting of an entire community. Well, I was saying that Tim, there's audio of him, and recordings of him, even him and BK and other, people, where they're laughing about the targeting of even people like Ernie, or that Candace is enjoying it in the background. They're like, man, she's sick. And Tim's like, yeah, they are what they are, but we got to let them run, right? And then he's like, oh, I'm being recorded, and all these things. He acts like he's like, he thinks they're guilty, but he's in it for something. He's like, oh, wait, hold on, I'm supposed to be a friend. I might be being recorded, but he clearly is laughing with BK and many others, and thinks it's funny what they're doing, and it's like a video game or distant, or there's not real people in real lives. How C and D are laughing about it, and I mean, I've seen them laugh about the games they play, including, I was like on the hill, still living there when they played the Mary hoax,
Yeah.
and so I've seen many varieties of it, including them sending feds out here with stuff they know was not said or done, all this other stuff, and twisting and turning just to target us. And they know that in doing so, even though they're lying to the feds to do that and having those calls made, all this other stuff, it's taking time off of their own daughter's case, and that she's missing. Somewhere around 4:30, 4:42. You could pull it back by a couple of minutes from 4:30, but not by much, and you really can't go past the 4:42 mark. Something.
Okay.
Know that we're asked about it repeatedly. No explanation given, or I know that I know people are always like, well, does she know about Cody's or big cats or this or that? Or Josh, I've lived in the woods my whole life, and even as a little one, I'd get out here where I'm at now and, frolic through the woods in the middle of the night. Like, I know my noises and sounds and animals, and I mean, you name it, I know the sound of it. This was not a coyote. This these wasn't a bear or a big cat, and I mean, and I ticked one of those off a few nights after summer vanished out in the dark, listening, waiting, seeing if through the night, seeing if you'd hear her voice somewhere as things quieted, or
Yeah.
for clues or sounds or anything, Nobody came to get me. I was already going down, to meet Monster, right? Nope, not until Candace, at 6:09, I sent the last message where satellite service, the Wi-Fi ends on our driveway. I sent it, and I was like, well, I'm going down here and rest flowers. That way he couldn't mess about, right, for long.
Mm-hmm.
And I could kind of push, that from happening. So I was like, well, I'm going to go down and mess about flowers. That was at 6:09. I could hear Candace and them yelling. By the time I get to the bottom, it had picked up in a way, like, I don't know, the emotion or something behind it a little bit. And so as I reached the bottom, I'm like, well, it's too many calls, but, but I still walked across to where, like, you can see in the pictures when some of the tragedy pimps visited the hill, you see the yellow trash can sitting there.
Right.
So I crossed over there, kind of looked down. I was like, well, and then I wandered across, and then by this point, there's more movement and more noise, more intensity, and it's just feeling not okay, right? I knew someone should have answered in this time. Candace and them, and they should have been able to hear me. As they were circling at the top of the house, you could tell it's what they were doing, was circling around, up there. No, I was not up on their hill that day. I never went up on the hill. I stayed down. Look, all I know is that, yeah, at a certain point, I hear everybody come together sort of in the front and like center, as like if you're at the bottom and you're kind of looking up there at the front and center of everything. And I hear, what did you do? What did you do? And the nothing mama, nothing mama. And then I could hear the boys immediately hit and start going down the left side towards that part of the creek, right? Yeah. Nothing mama, I swear. It is weird, yeah. Unless, of course, you're trying to maybe make kids feel guilty for something that's not their fault. Their sisters just vanished, and you want them to believe they're somehow responsible, or or other things, But yeah, I've always thought that was a little weird, especially since you have the WJHL piece where Grandis is apparently, before Candace even come down the driveway and never seen me, and Dawn never said so somebody took my baby girl,
Right.
Apparently, according to Grandis on the WJHL thing, before the boys ever even went down the left side, right, where I heard them go, they all thought Summer had been kidnapped already. How they would think that without searching the other property or bottom or the boys had, it's beyond me, but that's what they thought, apparently. But yet she's screaming, "What did you do? What did you do?" But they did have a habit, it seems like, especially the eldest and others, of making them feel like Summer vanishing was their fault. No, because Dawn, Monster, and the cops all kind of at the same sort of moments, right? They're coming and going. There was two at first, and they come in, and I could see one parked on Simpson Road. The other, I think, went straight up, to the driveway, whatever. But Andy had stopped right before the cops had, and he had talked to Candace. I could see him talking to Candace at the stop sign at the end of Ben Hill. Then he starts to come my way, right? And I walk back up towards the guardrail on the main Beech Creek road, right? And I kind of wave at him, and I'm like, "Summer's missing," etc. He's like, "I know." I was like, "Well, I've seen you down there talking to her. I just wanted to make sure," right? And I could hear some of their conversations. So that's how he kind of found out, was by Candace, really, first. Then he runs into me, and I tell him, and then you can hear the cops, the dogs lighting up through Beech Creek, which always means the cops are coming. They start passing Andy. Dawn's coming in at that point. Dawn starts coming in and out. But the first two cops, they pull in. Back there, I continue on my path, looking for Summer. I can see the boys visually. I'm the other neighbor out there searching, and then the other neighbors are starting to come in. Yeah, it had to be close to. So let me see. I going to drive it. You're looking at close to 7. Well, it was like, because Andy's coming. Yeah, I just don't think Dawn seen it first. It was just kind of chaos at that point. You could go back to earliest vids and see exactly those moments, because things are starting to whatever. But yeah, kind of like almost a clash at one time in a way, right?
Yeah.
Was the search the first one's in, right? They're standing up on the driveway, and they were trying to get all the radios, also their stuff ready, blah blah blah. As other community members who were trained searchers were like, "Nah, bro, I'm bypassing that, and we're going searching," And but they were starting out, and you could hear them saying, "Well, she's reported missing at 6:30." And I was like, and other neighbors are like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. She's been missing since, she had to be missing before 6:09, right?" So, we're like, "Hey, sirs, no, she ain't been missing no damn 10 minutes. And, she went missing, had to be before 6 or 6:09, because I already heard him yelling for her, right?" at the time, I didn't have like the phone in the hand. I hadn't had advertising on yet because that came later, but I knew damn good well it wasn't, and so did the other neighbors. Like, no, that ain't right, And so we tried to tell them they were already starting on the wrong time, but at a certain point that evening, after they kind of, we had searched and the train searchers were taking over, but community members were still up. But I knew because it had already been over what they'd been over, right, with the other neighbors. And, so they were starting to question, they were starting to do all things, state police starting, but we were all told to kind of stay where we were in the rows and things, waiting on interviews and all this stuff. And there was a point there, obviously nobody was loud on 110. The cops had kind of stated that, but Monster's like, meh, I'm gonna go up there anyway and help, like he cared. But yeah, and later on, I know that cops were like, hey, wasn't that, when they were going to violate him on orders, they're like, hey, wasn't that nice guy that helped us search there on top of it? I was like, you mean when he was told not to be up there and he went up there anyway? That one, yeah, yeah. They're like, oh my God, okay, but we're doing this anyway, because what an asshole, But so he went up there for a little bit, and I guess helped search the shop. I never did go up there. I told him not to, but you know how well that works. He'd swear he hated them, whatnot, blah, 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 but you can see it, there's just stuff in the background there. They were definitely tighter than anybody else, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
within a couple hours of summer banishing, about the time they started to set up the command post, things started getting a little quieter in the road, everything been kind of cleared. The helicopter done been up, it was flying, all that, but they were concentrating on that point at doing the command post setup at Mount Carmel, and everybody was hungry, I guess, and they were bringing in food and such. So everybody kind of took off down there. It was after Fred had broken up the road anyway, so it could get unbottlenecked by everybody, and everybody could actually get in and out anyway. But Don came down the hill or whatever, but he came in the Subaru, and he was going towards Fred's, and he stops and he's talking to me. I was like, man, don't be going up there and getting no shit, dude. Like, seriously, And he's like, oh, no, I'm just going to go see what, yeah, because I figured that's what he was doing. Oh, no, I'm just going to go see what, he knows something, right? Like, he was just going to see if he'd seen or heard anything. I was like, well, whatever, And somewhere in that short kind of conversation, he was basically like, she's gone, right? And I'm like, dude, it's only been a couple hours. And it had been by the point, only a couple hours, And I was like, man, give her a chance, dude. Like, she can, if she can get free or she can do whatever, somebody's got her, man, if she can get loose or free, she can run like the wind. Give her a chance. He's like, man, statistics. And at first it's like, well, I know how these people are. They're more base. And what do you hope as a parent, that your child's out there being tormented for who knows how long? Or do you kind of wish that, it's over quick? I don't know. It's a terrible thought, but but them being more base, maybe, and him being what he is, maybe he's thinking statistics, and I know law enforcement talks to parents, gets them ready for all possibilities, but I was just kind of taken aback. And I was like, man, I'm standing here after talking this dude into having her, and he's like, nah, she's gone. I didn't see Candace again, not in person, for a couple of days. I would see her come and go from the hill with police or with Robin and David or Grandis or whatever, and law enforcement, that type of thing. But for a couple days, I didn't see Candace. I seen Fred that night. He was the one that broke up the road because they weren't going to let him in, and then he just pushed his way in. He had a trailer behind him, I think a bike on it or something, and he pushed past law enforcement again. It broke the road up to where other neighbors that have been stuck in there with their vehicles and things trying to help. And so I seen Fred come back in at some point that way early. They had heard his truck go out, right? Because at the time he drove like this yellow truck, whatever, but it was fairly loud. It was a piece of whatever. It was pretty distinct. And I had heard him, but I don't remember really kind of what time. It was, quite a bit before, as I recall, at least, because it didn't really super stick, I don't think, unless Ellie very early on does the same thing and it's down there. I don't think it's something that's super stuck about what time I heard him. But it wasn't like evening time or anything when I heard him. It was far earlier in the day when I heard him leave out, and then he come in late that evening and night and pushed past the cops, and he didn't have ID to show to get in and all that, and he was like, nah, I'm good, you're gonna let me in anyway. Pushed in and broke up the traffic, and I talked to him as he come by because my soul, Andy had parked it quite close to the roadway because, just the angle of it and everything, and I asked Fred, I was like, hey, because he had his window down, arm out, I was like, do you want me to move it a little bit so you can get through? Because he was literally like an inch from like running me over at the edge of the driveway as we waited. And he didn't really speak. And then I think the next day, very early on, I seen him at the bottom of the driveway. He was coming down. It was very weird what was occurring, started occurring pretty quickly into the days after. But yeah, I started seeing Fred quite a bit. But also Fred was staying all the way out of there after we all felt like there was something funky up with goofies and the targeting of people in there. Well, when the polygraphs happen and stuff, you hear Don say, well, Candace felt like it was a competition. He's like, oops, maybe I shouldn't do that. Because he's like, oh, I passed mine, but Candace felt hers. Well, I did also pass mine either. So, type of garbage. But very quickly and early on after summer
Just a few days.
Wasn't even that. It was within like a couple days there, yeah. And I swear I want to tell you it was like the second or third day. But we were standing once again down the bottom of the driveway, yellow trash can. There'd been another Fred contact moment there, just like the second day and so on and there forth. But he had said that he changed stories throughout as the days went by on why they failed this sooner. But the first things were that, Candace felt hers, whatever. But then later on, he come back with the whole. And Candace told me this too, that a female agent had basically slammed her up against the car. This and was screaming at her, "You've killed your daughter! You've killed your daughter! We know it. Where is she? What have you done with her? We know it's you." And they had her in tears, and she was crying, and she couldn't even breathe. And then they slammed her in the back of the cop car and took her to take a polygraph. And then she failed it because they had her so upset. Next day is when she runs to Hunter's and asks what he's told him because she failed her polygraph. And then eventually she passes it, I guess. I don't. But their stories changed. But much like Dotson, I was told a similar story to Dotson on how many times and what they were, how many polygraphs. Actually, there's a recording around here because early on, I guess he was going to be their PR guy till he got smart and got out, or he got booted because he was telling far too much truth. But there's a recording of it with him on, and you can't get many pieces of them, but others did the review, so they're still up. I never spoke to him. I might have talked to him in the road, like after Summer vanished for like brief moments or something. But I never saw those people there before. I never heard Candace and Dawn mention him. Neither did Andy. The night they showed up when Summer vanished, I know that Summer's other church families and stuff from inside of Beech Creek and otherwise were in there trying to help. And were helping and had credentials and things. But the thing is, David and Robin show up at a certain point, and they were out there making such a spectacle that even Andy took note and came up to me at the bottom of the driveway and was like, "Who are these yahoos out here?" That Andy even told them to F off, because what they were doing was they were asking Andy, I guess, he was like, "Man, they're out here asking me crazy stuff. Like intimate stuff about what's going on here, extreme stuff about, I guess details, wanting to know every little thing." And Andy's like, "I don't know these people, but they're trying to get in here." And even the other community members were like, "Who are the freak shows out there?" And cops wouldn't let them in until everything was basically cleared out. And then you watched one vehicle go up, and it kind of pancaked. Like, there was one Subaru, then Dawn and Candace's red, and then another Subaru. They all went up the hill. And then after that, I guess they stayed with them along with law enforcement that night and through the night. That Andy had seen it and seen them out there, and other community members did, but they definitely didn't arrive till dark or later at night.
Right.
And the helicopter was done up and flying back point, roads saturated, cops blocking off things. There was a no-go, on everything, cars being searched. You weren't getting in and out of the road without ID, that type of thing, yeah. So, it was an immediate thing. Like, I stopped, I stopped like the third or fourth in. He was in like an SUV style instead of like the squad car style. And I was like, I heard a scream, and I've been looking for whatever. And then I also talked to another neighbor and all these, but they, it wasn't long before we were all, we were told to stay in place at our respective driveways and things, right? And that's kind of what we did, just to hang out down there. And it was initially it was like Hawkins and all the surrounding police departments. Very short order. It was state police, like, state, Tennessee State Highway, and then eventually through the night, they finally let us out to get something to eat around midnight. I have exact timestamps for it and stuff, but feds show up, and they went up the driveway, and my eldest was there, and he had messaged, and he was like, "The feds are here," and they said to get back here. I was like, "Man, they just let us go like 10 minutes ago. Can I grab food?" And he asked, and they said, "Yeah, to do whatever." So he got food, come back in there, grabbed Dawn and Candace's cigarettes, stuff like that too, they'd need through the night. And we hauled ass back in, and then we're interviewed by them. But it was a thing. It was not just, that night and that was it, right? This was an ongoing everyday thing with profilers, FBI, TBI, detective after detective for, and yeah, this was nonstop for a long time every day. And it was for other neighbors and things. It was nothing, but it would, like, one team would come through, plus then eventually you have like specialized units like the card teams, all those that come in. You had the head FBI agents and all those they talk about, and that come in with command centers and all this that he or she was on. They would have enjoyed that this entire 2 years, and they've tried to triangulate it. I'm well aware of that. It's why I just don't, and I didn't want us crossing lines or ever coming in contact, just to keep things unblurred. But last night it happened to be that I'd been on an hours-long phone call with others that are genuinely trying to help Summer. And it's pretty emotional the way it was. And then we were kind of informed he was running amok. Things have been mentioned. He had hit PGs. And whatever, we're like, oh God, to watch. And when I come into the room, there he was, and he was saying something about, it was some sort of lie about whatever, the traffic or some garbage. So actually, I think it was some other, I don't know. He said something, it was a lie, and about you, I don't know. But he knew I was in chat because I commented something about, well, then he could go to 14 or 15 police departments a day instead of 14 or 15 YouTubes a day. And then he just full out lied about the traffic and all that, saying there was traffic coming from 125. I was like, oh no, he ain't. Mm-mm. And then he let out full targeting with the, oh, and he mimicked me, right? Which is that where I always tell people, and I know this, I even was like, with law enforcement, and if you've watched even basic CSI, people who commit crimes like this often watch the things or revisit or whatever, right? And so I always kind of say, the person or persons responsible are probably watching this circus. Anyway, so he kind of, he says, yeah, he or she is watching. It was like a suspect. I'm like, oh, I get you hit, wink, right? But when he said that about the traffic, and I just, nope, he's not going to stand there and harass, terrorize, direct more stuff at us with lies and slander and garbage and make everybody in that community somehow these magical giant, like, meth dealers, right? And that's not true. And he's trying to make the whole of that community look like it is just like,
carbs make you fat, right? But that's simply not true.
Carbs don't make you fat. I'm a big donut guy.
So you probably have come across this guy before. He doesn't even cut back on carbs.
Breaking Bad version of Wizard of Oz. Okay? And I'm done with it. And even though, like, Monster's Monster, I'm not going to stand there and let him lie on him or anybody else like that. Now, what else they were getting up to in their own spare time, I don't know. But what I do know is there was no traffic at 125 coming or going. I can count on both hands how many people in the entire decade plus we lived there that ever visited or came back and forth. And so Dawn said that was it for me. I was like, nope. And then, PG's like, oh, you ain't got the whatever if you don't come up. I was like, man, spare me the 2-year-old stuff. I was already on the way up. So I went up, and the rest is kind of YouTube history, right?
This is Candace giving a list of suspects, probably, I think, 8 or 9 months ago.
Man, I'm not 150% of chance of anything doing with this. I don't know. I can't tell you because I don't know. I have a lot of suspicion. I have a problem with Allie, Jose, Jodi Sue, Andy, Donnie. I mean, I could list a whole bunch of people.
If you notice, that list meets up with, the same people over that they've targeted. That really the only ones that make sense on it are her saying Dawn. And then why did she include Dawn? Is that what Dr. Phil and the behavior panel are like, hey, you're leaking knowledge? Does she think Dawn has, I don't know. But that's really the only one on there that makes sense to me. Yeah, we heard from day 2 onward, even for months, even past their polygraphs and things, that everybody pretty sure they were guilty and they did it. And
this comes from, I don't want you to, but law enforcement officials that were investigating the case, and they said to you, yeah, we're pretty sure that they're guilty.
I heard they're guiltier than fucking sin. Sorry. Yeah. Even it's like, I don't know. Are they Is it just because they're Jerry Springs? Is it just because they are what they are that they look that way, even if they're not? But then, as things went down the line, and especially after some of the stuff that Monster and his camp and all them were getting up to, and the things done there, the distrust grew, and then you have C&D in there trying to set up all the stuff, I don't know, and that distrust of certain things, very much, it was like, I don't know, man, but honestly, the longer this has gone on, and the more I've seen how C&D abate, I mean, my doubt, like at first, I really was like, man, I don't think C did this, because of this and this and this that day, and all these other things, but the more I've watched her face, and the hoaxes and the nonsense, and then willing to take away from Summer to play games and to make these nonsense calls and to target everybody around Summer's anything that isn't necessarily like a suspect, but just people that if you look at who they've targeted, talked about, put out on whatever, it's all people that know too much about them or orbited too close at some point, or could, I don't know, I think they're afraid of a lot of those they target for some reason. And I wonder which one may hold the key. There are things that I know I should not say. Josh, it doesn't take a genius, and I was never explicitly taught, but there are all kinds of things I also heard. I know I was not meant to hear. Things that have been told to me that probably should not have been. There are the things I heard and see and stuff. There are things here that I cannot say without certain people who have a tendency to mimic and parrot and pick pieces and learn and gather them to build stories, right? There are lots of things that should not be said in the open. But the law enforcement is fully aware of,
Did they search your property?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And your house, everything.
Every building on it, many, 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 many times. With all the dogs, many times. With full consent to do so at any time. They even had permission from us to, if they needed to take cards or anything like that out of cams over there, any of that stuff, they were allowed to do so at any time without even asking, doing whatever, so they could keep, fully cooperative, and never denied them access to anything, never said no to a search, never. And they, I know the public thinks the searches were over after 2 weeks, but that's not the case. They said they were drawn back, right? But what the public is unaware of, I guess, is that they were literally in there. Even until we moved out of there, they were still in there every day searching. Coming in small little groups, but they were there and they were searching. For months. Before Utah, I'd felt some type of way about some things, and I was digging for maybe some proof on anything that I could to, I don't know. And, but then, even up at, once, the return from Utah, all that, and it looks like, and I think I've shown the receipts for this, even up until the 20-something of May, I was still digging for things. I'd found that, that Kingsport address that's listed to Dawn. I'd found his son on the registry, all those things already. But, things were hitting sideways again a little bit, and I had this, I don't know, there was something wrong over there, but it could have been that there were many things wrong over there, just like always, right?
Yeah.
all the time. Well, it was never the same pack because they would dump them off everywhere. But that had been the longest pack there, simply because other neighbors had gotten fed up with their stuff and finding. One neighbor actually, like they had adopted one of the doggies. They found it at a church dump, knew where it came from, adopted it, vet care, spay, all this. And it was their family pet. And I guess it got back up there one day when Candace or somebody loaded them all up, and they took it and dumped it off at Walker's again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these people went looking for their family pet. And when they did, they found it at one of the known locations where they dumped, and they went and told C&D they caught them dumping anymore. They called the police and, all this other stuff. So at that time, the dog's been kind of left be for a while. And so, yeah, but either way, no matter which pack come and went, there was always one or two. So I could always kind of tell what they were doing, but yeah.
Right. Did you hear any dogs that day?
No.
The dogs weren't barking that day?
Nope, and they should have.
So,
all of our
on vacation, like Dawn said, I mean, where the hell were the dogs?
I don't know, and that's the thing. They have a tendency around there to disappear on days you think are going to be average, but then something happens. It would happen every time during like our Peeping Tom incidents, right?
So we'll talk a little bit about that.
For a couple years before Summer was born, right? For a couple seasons, what was happening was Monster would go out to this job he supposedly had on Lake Middle Tennessee, but somebody was, and it was never like a super planned in advance, right? So there was no date. He would go out, he'd just come home from one place, be like, "Oh, I'm leaving. I gotta go down here, right? Work." And I'm like, whatever, And so somebody was close enough to see when he was coming and going, and knew the properties well enough to sneak up beside of my bedroom window, where at the time my daughter was only 5, 6, right? And for years I'd always believed like they were just peeping on me. But I was like, well, wait, when Monster was gone, Little was with me, co-sleeping, And so, but they were adept, and I knew the property well enough to be able to sneak. I could see their shadow moving through, right? And they was standing right at the screen, which was only like an arm's length away, because they're smaller farmhouses, right? And I'd have the window open, and you could barely hear them, even though, like, I wasn't big on, the raking or anything. They could stand right there, and you could not hear them.
Right.
But I could see them, and it was, at the time, though, I was on a medicine that was very much messing with me, and that Monster, like, kept forcing me to take because he knew it was why he wasn't getting caught doing what he was doing at the lake and all these other things, but, so he kept trying to call me crazy, whatever, but one night I'd had enough because this person would stand there for a very long time, right? And I'd had enough. And I went outside and they ran, and I chased them down, got about halfway down the driveway. I was like, whoa, this particular medicine is a heart and like blood pressure type of medicine. And it takes away your fight or flight anyway. Not that I have much of one. But it takes it entirely away. And it's one of the side effects of it for everyone. And so not really a side effect, but a known thing that's going to happen. Anyway, I reached out to grab this person, this man, and I was like, oh dear, you've left the kids behind. And if something happens to you, they're here, So I just stopped. And I turned back around and went in. But this went on, off and on, for a couple of years. And then Monster kept telling me I was crazy and all these things, I'm like, whatever. And then finally I was like, look, I'm not. Our dogs are disappearing, right? As this happens every time, they come back injured eventually. You can tell that there's like rope marks on them. They smell like hay. They're being kept somewhere. A couple times there'll be like cologne and things. I'm like, something is wrong here. Somebody is, and it got so bad that I was finally like, look, and at the same time, I was also getting these anonymous, I guess from Amazon or whatever. Amazon would not give me the name of the person, but it was stuff I'd only talked about in the house, like Monster or the kids about needing like clay softener, weird stuff, little things, right? Somebody was sending them anonymous. It was like a power move, like, I hear you, type. It was like, oh my God. But I was like, look, how about we take you out, or you go out in your Jeep, like you're doing whatever. I'll come out a little bit, act like I'm getting groceries, whatever it is, and we'll cover you up in the back and bring you back in. Well, that's what we did. And then throughout the day and stuff, he stayed very quiet. And that night, like clockwork, and the dogs had disappeared again. Here comes this person. I was like, told you. And he chased him down, but then he lost him because he was way heavy set at the time. He turned back around to get the vehicle, and they went right towards Sullivan County side. There was a truck involved, all these things, and we called the police that night. But that went on for a couple years. But after I believe it was the one where he almost caught him, and he's always, because the next day I met Candace for the first time. I was like, what's going on here? Even then because it was like, I don't know, it seemed very strange to me that the neighbors had been over for so long, hadn't made an appearance till the day after realm. But I mean, it was like throughout the year, and then I didn't know at the time that Candace was pregnant with Summer, and all these other things. But then after Summer's born, I felt like it let off, but then in ways maybe not, as I've looked back through patterns and things. But for the longest time until this happened, it was like, man, I felt like it was like an adult peeping in on me, but it was like, man, here she is at the same age that Summer's taken, There's something, I just feel like, I don't know, right? Andy's always said it was Dawn, or there's one other person, but that also, they're very good friends with Dawn, and they hang out on their hill all the time, and stay there intermittently.
There's a question here on the screen, and it seems relevant. Yellow trash can service on Tuesdays. What time is the service between AM and PM? Please and thanks.
I'd have to look back at what days it was for us there on video, because we had just started. I just started it, and they stopped the trash service for 10 days immediately, plus the mail. And I didn't realize until I went down to put trash in there one day, and I did it in front of, because the meeting point for the buses, as the searchers were being brought in and out, was our driveway at 125, right? So they'd stand right there at the bottom of ours, and or in our driveway, and chill and hang out till the bus arrived. And so I went down to put trash in a trash can, and then a couple days later, still wasn't going. I was like, what is happening? And I think that's when they did the search warrant on Candace and Dawn's while they were going to that one vigil or whatever it was, and I guess they thought that was Candace and Dawn's trash. And I was like, hey bros, I put that out there days ago in front of search groups, but y'all are more than welcome to it. How about it? But I didn't realize till then, that and I had to have another neighbor there. Yeah, they cut off our mail and stuff, and my cancer meds, they're not here yet, and they turned them away at the end of the road, and it's been, chaos. I was like, wait, what? They turned away our mail and our trash, but the brush and tree crews are still all right.
it's been, chaos. It's like, wait, what? They turned away our mail and our trash, but the brush and tree crews are still alright.
Vet Girl says 5:30 to 6 p.m. service for Ben Hill, confirmed Tuesday. So
here, the trash service is by some of the same people, and now they've got a newer truck. Because before it was only like they would do bags and things. But it's very early in the morning here before daylight. But down there it wasn't like that. And I remember asking the detectives, because Dawn, for some reason, look, once you're around monsters for so long, you can get a feeling for them, right? Before they ever get anywhere near you. But you can always tell if one leans towards, like, just like domestic, or like kids, or like murderer, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least. And I've been around all types in my lifetime. But I knew Dawn was something, always. From the first second I come near it. Just like Candace, there's still been there, But I remember asking, but I never could place a finger on it. And he never could make eye contact with me either for years. Even Monster couldn't do it. Monster would wear sunglasses in the house or cars or anything because he couldn't look me in the face. But Dawn never really could either. But I knew he was something, right?
Right.
And I remember asking one of the detectives, I was like, man, for years I've known this dude, so I just don't know. I can't put it in there. Like, you want to know why? It's because he's so many types of monsters. He's one of the sickest, this, that, and the others I've ever seen in my career. He was going to the shed. I think he was, for some reason, I think he somehow knew the boys would be down where they were. I think he was pulling there to see if he could get contact with the boys real quick, talk to them real quick, whatever, I don't know. I don't think it had anything to do with the shit. They were supposed to be looking, but when I seen them and the way they stayed for quite a few minutes as I made my way to them, and around the areas, they were just kind of squatted down, looking at something, and I thought, well, they've gotten distracted, they're playing, whatever. And I don't know now. But I know that they weren't actively like so. But as soon as they realized I was near them, and they popped up, and they started walking up, like almost like they went. I was like, "What in the world? That's weird for them, And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, And I asked them about Summer, and they told me that the last place they'd seen her was a swing set. It clearly meant swing. I asked them how long. They said, 5-10 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's not possible, right? But kid time feels different, right? Y'all remember being a kid? And I was like, okay, well, it's still a better answer than I had received off of Candace when I first run into her. So, I mean, and for me, the boys, I knew at some point I'd meet them down there anyway, and I would get a better answer and an idea of where Summer was last. And so, yeah, but it was only like the eldest that would answer for the whole group. Everybody else kept their heads. It was very odd behavior, but I thought, well, they think I'm going to tell Candace or Dawn or something. And they see all this movement and these police showing up, and they're just like, she's going to tell Mom we weren't really searching, whatever, and we're going to be in trouble. But they should have known better, because I'm not going to tell Candace not for them to be in trouble, Not like they ain't no need next. I know that they yelled at them stuff, at the very least off and on. So it's like, nah. It just, but things in hindsight, as they're playing out, But I knew right then something was a little off the behavior. But yeah, as soon as they seen I and maybe the other neighbor, because he was still there too, and we were all turning back. But I went a little bit further, but the boys went off like the middle of the cleared portion where the brush and tree cutters went through, and they were going back that way, back towards 110. And I I'm a little further up to like the fence line down there. It kind of runs between 110 and then the creek, but it's between them and about where Sharpie is on Simpson and all that, you know. And then I turned around and come back, and I went through the middle of the field too. By this point, everywhere's filled up with the other neighbors. But I looked for because the big equipment, the heavy equipment they use to clear cut everything and grind it down to nothing but mud. The tires they use on that equipment are heavy duty, right? And they leave the big, deep, like, square, you know what I mean? Like the
Right.
And so I was looking for those to be pressed down or anything. And never saw footprints through them, never saw anything like that. I just no, it's like, I don't care. Everybody else makes this big deal like sus or not.
Right.
I don't care as long as Summer's found, man. They can look at me all day long, every day. And it's like my son and my daughter, I know they didn't do anything here. At one point, they even had my daughter, who was like 11 or 12 or something at the time, driving the truck that we never borrowed or had possession of, my mom's, going to get me a pack of cigarettes and hitting Summer, all this other garbage, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my children were unlike some people. And I know my children, like, man, nobody on my hill did anything to cause or help with or any of the other stuff of whatever transpired on June 15th, okay?